Welcome to the Stygian Stilettos Gamer channel. This is Stygian Sis. Please like, share, and subscribe, and find me at twitter.com/StygianSis. I got my girl Tifa the Monk with me again. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. I'm very anxious to get into this particular subject, but
Can't imagine why.
oh, oh boy.
Ooh.
But thank you very much for inviting me again. I absolutely love talking to you, and yeah, I got a lot to say on this particular subject.
All right. Speaking of subjects, what we're going to talk about is, well, Tifa, her life, but mostly, whew, what? How do I put this? The misconceptions about Tifa. uh, if you've been in this fandom any particular amount of time, more than a week, you've probably heard something insane about Tifa. So we really just want to go through her life and kind of debunk some of the things that we've heard over the years about Tifa. She's just, really one of the greatest characters ever written, and it's hard to watch her be trashed day in and day out by ill-intended people in the fandom. Luckily, I believe most of the fandom appreciates Tifa as she is, but there's a loud minority that likes to rain on the Tifa parade, and we just want to, in a hopefully measured way, go down this list of trash takes that people have of Tifa. So, with that being
Oh,
said,
I like that.
so with that being said, let's start off with the childhood. Let's say ages. Well, I mean, of course, we don't know too much before she's 8, so let's go 8 through 13. Now, you may be wondering what in the world could somebody have to say about an 8 to a 13-year-old, but buckle up. So,
You'd be surprised.
absolutely. So, as we just to familiarize people with the story at this point. So, when Tifa's 8 years old, she loses her mother, and then this is when the mountain incident happens, and Cloud then takes blame for what happened, where basically she fell, she almost died. Cloud fell with her, but I believe she was in a coma, right, Monk?
Yeah, she was in a coma for 7 days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 7. Yeah, so she was in a
And
coma. Mm-hmm.
and as a result of the incident, she has amnesia around that incident. She doesn't remember anything that happened up there. Now keep that in mind, because that's an important fact that will be very conveniently forgotten by a certain segment of this fandom.
Of course, yeah. They have amnesia as well. Anytime anything about Tifa comes up, that's good. So
Very convenient amnesia.
so when she wakes up, Cloud has taken blame for basically coaxing her to go up the mountain. Now she knows he's lying, but I mean, she was in a coma. She just lost her mom. She almost died herself. She's 8. I want to just, kind of go back to that little fact. She's 8 years old. She's not quite sure how to help her friend. So, now if you're wondering what we're talking about, people through these years, 8 through 13, like to paint Tifa as a bully. She, ignored Cloud, this and that. She let him take the blame for everything that happened. But we start with the mountain incident because it's important to understand. And by the way, Nojima goes through all of this in Traces of Two Paths. That book was released in July of last year. And it just reinforces what we already could have, determined, and what a lot of Cloudies had determined long before 2021, is obviously you fall off a mountain and almost die, you probably don't remember a lot about it. And, you take that into account, plus the fact that she's 8, she just doesn't know what to do. And then her dad is furious, so she's put in this position where she has her dad furious, doesn't want Cloud anywhere near her. It's a tough situation. I don't know that I would have been able to do anything differently if I were 8.
And if I may interject here, we all know that Tifa had questions regarding that, but she didn't know for sure what happened on that mountain. She says she has doubts about whether Cloud took her up there or not, but she doesn't remember for sure. That's why she wanted to talk to him later and get some answers from him. And we know from Traces of OTWTAS that that was one of the things that Tifa wanted to talk to Cloud about. That's why that was one of the reasons she was so anxious to see him again. When Sephiroth and the rest of them come to Nibelheim, and Tifa is hoping that Cloud is with them because she wants to pull him aside and ask him, hey, what happened up there on that mountain when we were kids? Exactly. She wants to get the chance to ask him about what happened because she doesn't know. So how can you defend somebody when you don't even know what happened? And Cloud is the one going around telling everybody that he did it. And so, yeah, she's in a very peculiar situation. There's an incident that she doesn't know exactly what happened. Her memories of that incident are completely just all messed up. And her father is furious, of course, as you said. And, yeah, it's not one of those things where Tifa, the way certain people in the fandom like to paint this is, oh, Tifa was malicious about this. Like, she deliberately just allowed Cloud to take the fall for this and stuff. And it's like,
and it's a direct reference to what happened in the Nibelheim incident. You know, for her to jump out there and say, oh, well, that didn't happen, blah, 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 with no evidence or no memory of what actually occurred. I mean, then she's jumping out there calling Cloud a liar, too. And then she's putting him in a precarious situation. Like, he's already decided to take blame. It seems like a purposeful decision. She may not believe it herself, but at the same time, no evidence. And then, yeah, it's just a bad spot to be in, because if she approaches Cloud and it's like, I don't think you did this. Why are you telling everybody this? That may have driven him further away than he already, you know, it's just a tough spot to be in. It really is.
And of course, I might be, we don't have any direct quotes from Nojima or the novel that say this, but I think it's pretty much, I think you can make a pretty safe guess that her father probably told Tifa to stay. Not only did he tell Cloud to stay away from Tifa, he probably did the same thing to Tifa, say, hey, I want you to stay away from that boy. So that probably just compounded the problem even more.
Yes.
It was just a messed up situation, and it's a very important event because it was what started Cloud's whole hero journey.
Yes.
Was that incident on the mountain. So it's a very important story. And yeah, it to see it so horribly mangled by factions of the fandom just so they can, you know, purposefully slander this really good character and try to paint everything that she does negatively is just it really grinds my gears.
And we should all be judged, of course, by the things we did when we were 8. So for a lifetime. I mean, she didn't even actually do anything wrong, but I'm just saying, even if she had, it's just you really got to kind of be sick in the head to be holding a grudge against an 8-year-old. Honestly, I mean, I don't know how else to put that. Oh my God, yeah, she may be A, B, and C as an adult and help save the world and all that, but then again, when she was 8, she stole that candy out of a candy store. It's just dumb as hell. Anyway, and around the same time, the bully narrative also is about how how Cloud was not in her circle of people. You know a little bit more about this than I do, though I'm pretty familiar with it. Why don't you get us started on that topic since we're in this realm?
Well, first, let's address what has caused a lot of confusion around this particular subject. And for this one, this narrative, of course, has been eagerly grabbed onto by people with not so pure intentions in regards to Tifa's portrayal. But there are some people who maybe genuinely believe that Tifa maybe wasn't very kind to Cloud when they were kids because of a certain mistranslation. And this is a provable mistranslation, and the FF7 OG, the English translation, does a horrible job of translating a certain portion of the live stream scene where Cloud and Tifa are exploring their childhood in his subconscious. And the line is translated as, you never let me in. Like, I wanted to play with everybody else, but you never let me in. But in reality, if you look at the original Japanese, it says, I wanted to play with everyone else, but I couldn't bring myself to act. It completely changes the context. Of course, I'm not doing a direct quote here, but that's what it's saying. It's saying that Cloud wanted to join them, but because of his own awkwardness, his own insecurities, he wasn't able to bring himself to ask to play with them.
Yes.
And of course, this is expanded even further in Traces of Two Past, where Tifa is talking about her childhood and describing how Cloud would kind of hang around, but he would always be around like the fringes. Like he would put him whenever they would go play somewhere, Cloud would put himself at the front of the group. He'd never like join in, but he'd be hanging around them and stuff, and kind of put himself in like leadership positions. They'd be walking or somewhere, and he'd walk out in front of them. And it confused Tifa because she was like, she wanted to ask him, if he was going to play or not, but he always seemed kind of to separate himself.
Yes,
Cloud was an odd child.
And an odd adult.
Yes, yes, he was.
That's one way to put it.
But he's an introvert. That's the type of personality that he has. It's not Tifa's fault that Cloud has a personality where he's not eager to be around crowds of people.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just people are different. And, it's not something that Tifa would have been able to help.
Of course, yeah. And she grows to appreciate his qualities as well, like preferring to be, not the center of attention, preferring to be alone sometimes. She does grow to appreciate that.
Yeah, and that is another thing that is addressed in Traces of Two Past. But as Tifa grows older, there's times where she wants to separate from people and just kind of not be, glommed onto by everybody else all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something that Cloud and Tifa are able to connect with each other on a level. It's one of those things where it's both a positive and a negative in their relationship. The positive, of course, being that they can relate to each other in a certain way because they both have very similar personalities. They're both very shy, very reserved, and they like to be alone sometimes. But also it creates problems in the relationship later on because they have communication issues.
Yes, and not that because it's not that relationships between, quiet, reserved people can't work. It's just that since they aren't used to really expressing themselves because they only really feel at home with each other, certainly later in life, they just have to adjust to that. They're used to bottling things up, keeping things to themselves. Now they're thrown into the situation where they're finally together, but they still hold those those habits become negative habits when it's in the context of just the two of them. So they have to learn to work through that, and they do. as we see, like with having children and stuff like that, which we'll get to later. But yeah, exactly. So it isn't that Tifa was bullying him out of the group to get back to what we were talking about. It's a lot of Cloud's, just Cloud's personality. And I'm sure, look, as you mentioned that there was a pact that the boys made that always hung around Tifa. And I'm sure those boys did not make Cloud feel welcomed. Thea was always talking about how beautiful Cloud was. And, he was even more beautiful than Sephiroth, and to really talking up Cloud to Tifa. And I don't think she recognized it at the time, but I think she was already falling in love with him long before she had that water tower, and which we'll get to in a second. But so I think they saw him as a threat.
Yeah, and to kind of continue on the same vein of thought, this narrative about her excluding Cloud or trying to push him out of the group or whatever, unfortunately becomes a talking point by the same type of people in Remake, because once you're finished with all the side quests with Tifa and you're sitting in the bar and Barrett comes up and gives you your money, and he basically tells Cloud to get lost. And Cloud, that whole time, at least with Avalanche, not with Tifa, but with Avalanche, Cloud has been nothing but
vituperative.
Well, let's just say he's been very abrasive with Team Avalanche up to that point. Oh, as soon as this job's done, I'm done, and I don't want to join your crew, and blah blah blah.
If you feel like venting or whatever, don't bother, and all this type of stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah, real snarky, and big soldier attitude.
Yeah, just basically making it clear that he wasn't there to be friends with anybody, and he wasn't interested in being a part of Avalanche. That he just wanted his money. This is a one-time gig. Blah blah blah. And of course, Tifa had just spent the entire day helping him get established there in Midgar.
Got him an apartment, got him jobs, taught him how to survive in Midgar, in Sector 7. She could have been making money. She could have been doing anything. She could have been relaxed. She could have been doing anything other than helping him out literally all day. Yeah.
And just showing him the ropes and everything. And if you read Traces of Two Paths and you see everything that Tifa went through and just how difficult it is to get on your feet in the slums, you grow to really appreciate the efforts that Tifa went through to make sure that Cloud didn't experience any of the same hardships that she did when she got to Midgar. She worked her ass off for him. She made sure that he didn't spend a single day there in the same situation that she was. She made sure he didn't have to sleep in one of those, shipping containers like she did.
And paying for showers and
being taken advantage of by every single person and being in debt to all these horrible people.
Selling buns on the side of the road.
Exactly. And even though she wasn't able to pay him the full amount right off the bat, she stayed with him and she worked with him the whole rest of the next day to make sure that he got his money. He never went a day in want of anything.
Exactly.
And that's because Tifa worked her ass off to make sure that he did.
But God
she
forbid.
Spent the whole day. So she spent the whole day working with him, and so she wants to spend some time with Avalanche. And so Tifa made the grave sin of telling Cloud, "Hey, I need this time with with basically her family there at that time." She wanted to spend some time with the guys, with Avalanche, and then
and she didn't even, she was across the bar when Barrett told him, the way that Barrett told him to leave and all. She more than likely didn't even hear it. She's literally across the bar. And when you walk up to her, there's 2 lines she actually says. She says, "Don't take this the wrong way, but I need to spend some time with them," basically. And then she also says, "I promise we'll spend more time together later." Horrible human being. I mean, I don't even know how he dealt with this vile bitch all day.
Yeah, and then the thing, I'm gonna pour a little salt here and say, I just find it very fascinating how Tifa is being painted by people as exclusionary, and oh, she's just so cruel to Cloud because she dared to try to spend any time, even just a little while, away from Cloud. How dare she? And then in the same breath, later go off about how clingy she is, and oh, she can't separate herself from Cloud for 5 minutes. And it's like, how in the world can Tifa be exclusionary and clingy at the same time? Pray tell, how does that work exactly?
Yeah, it's very interesting. She's clingy, can't do anything without Cloud, but she spent 7 years without him and built a whole life outside of his presence, becoming one of the world's greatest fighters, a business owner, helping raise a kid. Yeah, but can't do anything without a man. Of course, that makes total sense. Yeah. Whew, how can we fight that logic? But yeah, so so point being, she is not a bully. All that we've gone through all that, and then she does notice Cloud throughout those years, the 8 through 13, even though they weren't, because the way that Trace the Two Paths says it, they did play a lot as kids, I believe, like little kids. That's how they became aware of each other. I mean, just common sense will tell you nobody is, about to die falling off of a mountain following this girl up the mountain who has had no interactions with her, just has been she's just been next door and they've never had any interactions. And this is another thing, people like to take this whole "I've never been in your room before" from the live stream scene as meaning that they had no interactions. That's not the same thing. Okay, you can have there's plenty of people who I've never been in your room, Monk. I'm pretty sure we interact. Okay, so I'm gonna need grown ass people to deploy a little bit of common sense with some of this. Okay, the reason the other boys had been in there is because, again, they were all part of this group around that time. So one of the places they hung out with is in Tifa's room, and I would not be surprised if some of that was a bit retconned, honestly. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that they didn't hang out as little kids. If I have a 2, 3, 4, 5-year-old, I'm not necessarily just leaving them to be in the second bedroom. Like you're talking about a 2-story house. Oh yeah, y'all just let the 3-year-olds go up there in a room, and we're not gonna pay any attention to what they're doing. It's ridiculous. Anyway.
Well, according to Traces of Two Paths, while Tifa's mother was still alive, they played together a lot because they were next door neighbors.
Yes.
And so I imagine they probably spent a lot of time playing outside.
Mm-hmm.
Probably with both the mothers keeping watch over them.
Yeah, country kids. And, nice fresh air.
Country kids. And then you can kind of infer from that, because what's the first flashback that you see? Cloud going out of the door, and then there's Tifa and the boys, and they're playing outside.
Mm-hmm.
So I imagine that a lot of the time that the children spent together is outdoors, that's not necessarily in the house.
Yeah, just because the other boys had been in her room. And you know what? I'm sorry, just to cut you off real quick. It doesn't even say that they hung out in her room all the time. For all we know, that was their first time being in her room, too. We have no idea based on that dialogue. Her mom had just died. Maybe her dad allowed people to go in her room that day. Who knows? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I realize we're getting a little bit into the weeds and a little bit into headcanon territory here. and while we're discussing headcanon territory, people might be asking, well, how come they stopped playing, you know, when they were playing together when they were little kids, but Cloud had already started kind of separating himself from Tifa, before the mountain incident.
Mm-hmm.
And so the thing that makes sense to me is that I think Cloud was starting to develop a little bit of a little crush on Tifa at the time. Of course, I would classify it as puppy love at that stage because they were so tiny; they were little kids. But
Mm-hmm.
I imagine with somebody like Cloud who doesn't understand what he's feeling and stuff, and how awkward and shy he is, I imagine he's kind of started separating himself from Tifa because he didn't even really know how to act around her anymore.
Yes. Mm-hmm. I agree.
And so, but of course, I'm not trying to pass this off as canon. This is purely just speculation. But based on the evidence that I've seen so far, it's what makes the most sense.
Yes.
And knowing what I know about Cloud's personality.
Yeah, I completely agree. And so, let's see. I'm trying to think if there's any other insane child. Oh, yes, of course, the part where she's sleeping around with the entire town during these ages as well. I know the last point from the the Tifa detractors that I saw about why she's a slut as a 13-year-old is because they mentioned in the book that as her friends are all leaving for Midgar, she started to see the city as something that was taking away the people that she cared about. And she started dressing in styles from Midgar, basically. But what's crazy is later, after being with Zangan and all that, training with him, she later comes to the realization that her reaction was a bit naive, but I don't even think it was that bad. I mean, you're talking about a preteen / teenager. I just don't see how that makes her loose, that she puts on pretty dresses. Oh, because this ties into she wants the attention of men. I suppose. Well, I'm just wondering what you think about that.
Well, first of all, Tifa is a child. She's not even 13 when all this is happening.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she couldn't have been much older than 12 when all this is going on, because the promise scene happens when she's 13. So all this is happening before even the promise scene. It's around that time that all the boys are starting to leave. So, she's a little, 12, 13-year-old. She's not trying to get people's attention because she's trying to sleep around. She's a child. She is a child. She's sad because she's losing all of her friends. And she sees, this big fancy town, far away. Midgar is, the pinnacle of, it's basically like New York City to, some, little hick town in, the Midwest somewhere,
Uh-huh.
All her friends are leaving for New York City. And she's like, oh, all my friends are going to forget all about me, and she wants, them to pay attention to her again, because if she feels like she's just being left behind by all of her friends. And so she starts wearing the styles of New York City, aka Midgar.
Yes. It's really not that complicated.
It's really not that complicated. There's not some slut agenda here from a 13-year-old girl. A 13-year-old girl who's sad that her friends are leaving.
And we're talking about the logic of a 11, 12, 13-year-old girl as well. Again, this, you know what, but we shouldn't even be surprised. These are the same people that trashed Crisis Core Aerith because she dared to evolve between the ages of 15 and 22. I mean, so when you're dealing with people like that, it's no surprise that they would trash and find the worst takes possible about a child. And I want to keep stressing a child. Okay.
And and to continue on to debunk, Tifa was, flirting around with all the boys. Nojima takes special care in this particular novel to point out the fact that Tifa does not like to be viewed as a trophy. And that whenever the boys would try to start flirting with her and stuff, like, they would go off and they would do these picnics. Or, I guess Tifa called them tea parties, where they would
Mm-hmm.
go and, there was like this, spring off, kind of close to the town. And the boys would go and take her there, and they would have their little tea parties there. And when they were younger, there wasn't so much flirting, but when the boys started to get a little bit older and they started to notice Tifa in a certain way, she says it makes her uncomfortable. And whenever they would start trying to flirt with her, she'd try to change the subject. Does that sound like somebody who enjoys flirting around with all the boys in the town? When her
Yeah.
friends start flirting with her and she tries to change the subject and she says that she doesn't like to be viewed as a trophy, I think that paints a very clear picture of the kind of girl that Tifa was. She was not a flirt.
And she really just didn't like being viewed as just a pretty face. And this actually lines up with OG because I've mentioned this before. There's an Ultimania quote that says people, I mean, it basically says people judge her based on her looks, not who she actually is as a person. And so, of course, it doesn't mean that she doesn't like being pretty, but I feel there's a connection there. So Cloud, I feel, has that same thing that he's dealing with a lot because as an adult, people just always commenting how attractive he is, and Jesse saying stuff like, "Don't take those baby blues off of me," and da 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 da. I don't know that he necessarily craves that attention either. uh, they both want to be taken seriously, you know. So it's not they appreciate being attractive to each other, but I don't think that they like the whole world gawking at them either. You know what I mean? But anyway.
Well, they're shy people, and they don't have this inflated view of themselves.
No.
You know,
Mm-mm.
Cloud Cloud, despite him trying to put this tough guy persona on, of course we all know, thanks to the live stream scene and everything else, that deep down he's actually a very shy individual and doesn't think very highly of himself. And Tifa the same way. That's something they both share, is they both have kind of the sense of insecurity. And so I'm sure when people just pour all this intention on them, they don't even know what to do with it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And
Exactly.
it makes them uncomfortable. It makes them uncomfortable.
Yes, and since we're in the same vein of thought as far as whether Tifa likes the attention of boys, whether she's a slut and all this nonsense, especially we had already suspected, but Nojima seems to pretty much put a nail in that coffin. There's no man or boy ever mentioned that she had any relationship with, that she ever kissed. It is almost certain. I mean, I'm certain of it. There's no evidence that Cloud or Tifa have ever kissed anybody, dated anybody. And especially after that promise, she falls in love with him. He clearly is already in love with her. The fact that he would ask her out to this romantic date site in the middle of town, um, and convey his dreams with her, and then they make this promise. It's it is. I'm like 99.9% sure that they have never dated, kissed, nothing, anybody. They are each other's first everything. So, um, what's hilarious about this, because so the latest controversy going on with Tifa right now are these, we have the Italian Senate where Cloudy was having sex at the Italian Senate, and then we have the nude mods that are coming out for the game. What's crazy to me is it people like this will take any opportunity to try to paint Tifa as some type of slut, and or paint Clotis as not respecting Tifa. As if nude mods in video games are new or something. Or it's not like Tifa, like the character in the game as canon, is parading around the town naked. It's a video game mod. Grow up. Like, stop trying to invalidate Cloudy or trash Cloudies through the most ridiculous means possible.
Well, and it's a double standard too, because it's not, they act like Tifa's the only one who has these mods, I mean, or is sexualized. Have you spent 2 seconds in the FF7 fandom? There is no character in the entire fandom that's more sexualized than Cloud Strife.
Exactly.
Okay? I have seen more mods with Cloud's ass cheeks hanging out than I ever care to see. I mean, I love Cloud, I do, but some of these mods got me going, huh? Okay.
Yeah, they're very interesting. And somebody pointed out, Aerith actually had a nude mod before Tifa, but Aerith fans aren't sluts, or, I mean, you know, Aerith fans aren't faux Aerith fans. They aren't faux feminists. They aren't. They don't disrespect Aerith because they weren't flying off of the rooftops screaming in anger over Aerith having a nude mod. But as soon as Tifa comes out with a nude mod, now suddenly, oh, look at these Cloudies being horny for Tifa again. Well, I'm sorry that our ship is hot as shit. Okay, I apologize. But, I mean, I see it no different than fan art, which goes back to the Italian Senate thing. Like, none of this happened to those characters. If somebody had released a sex tape of Cloud and Tifa without their permission in the game, yeah, I'd be furious. But that's not what is occurring here. So yeah, it's just another, and I just wanted to throw that in. I know it's a bit off topic, but I just want to throw that in this whole vein of Tifa's a slut and and she's oversexualized. She's, first off, hot characters in general are not new to Final Fantasy. They act like Tifa's in some sort of vacuum, as if everybody else around her isn't smoking hot as well. It's not her fault that she's, you know, extremely popular and she is drop dead gorgeous, and a lot of people want to make fan art, fan fiction. They crush on her. But that has nothing to do with who she is as a character in the game. So what if, okay, they, you know, another thing I see is, well, you know, Cloudies need to be honest and just admit that she was designed to have sex appeal. Okay. Next. What's your point? They're selling a video game. You expect them to put the Hunchback of Notre Dame in it? I mean, I don't understand what the point is. Sorry, go ahead. I went on a bit of a tangent.
Their argument is that if we acknowledge that Tifa is an attractive character and she does have sex appeal, that's all she is. And I would like to say, let me blow your little teeny tiny little minds here for a minute. A character can be attractive and be complex and interesting. No.
It's funny how they can figure that out with Aerith or Cloud or Sephiroth or all these other characters. But somehow with Tifa...
Believe it or not, a character can have multiple facets to them. Wow. Shocking.
I know, I'm personally floored. I guess because Cloud is attractive, that there's nothing else to him. So, guess he's all fan service too.
I guess there's nothing to Sephiroth either. Okay, you know, the hottest villain. I guess that's all he is. He's just a pair of boobs and a sword.
And he has the best tits in the whole series, as far as I'm concerned. So.
And he lets them hang out canonly. I mean,
but he's not a slut.
Well, talk to this fandom. They might they might disagree with you.
But yeah, it's just very interesting how we put this standard. It reminds me of the standard of Cloudy. You know, there's this super high, impossible to reach standard when it comes to Tifa. She's got to walk around looking like a nun. Now, the girl, she's got a midriff, but her cleavage isn't showing. You know what I'm saying? They covered her up. My guess is they covered her up even more because Nojima has seen how this fandom, not the whole fandom, because most people, I think the majority of the fandom likes Tifa, but I'm sure there were a lot of factors, including the fact that people think that she's a bit too scantily clad, which, whatever. I don't personally give a damn, but yeah. So outside of a midriff and a little thigh, there's really no there. I guess unless we're living in some sort of puritanical society where a woman can't show shoulder, how dare you show a belly button? Meanwhile, all a lot of the other women in the game have their cleavage hanging out. I won't name names, I'm just saying. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But they aren't sluts. They aren't fan service. They aren't vapid characters. But Tifa, who is easily the most written, detailed character of the entire game, even beyond Cloud, honestly, at this point. When you have Trace the Two Paths, we can Nojima has written her life out from A to Z, almost at this point. We have the most details about Tifa of anybody, okay? Other than maybe Cloud. So, if you're going to judge Tifa, at least bother to judge her based on the things that she's actually done. Girl, we have there's a whole lot to say about this topic.
No, I know that's right.
Speaking of, let's go into adulthood and talk about Avalanche. I want to start the conversation off with her relationship with Barrett. Now, can you give us some insight in what you know about how they first met?
All right. So when Tifa meets Marlene and Barrett, they are homeless. And if my memory serves correctly, she had just finished paying off the bar. Or she had just gotten out of debt on something. But she ends up getting back into debt. Oh, okay, I remember. She had just gotten back into debt to purchase the bar, so that way she could give Barrett and Marlene a place to stay.
Mm-hmm. And she's 18, by the way. Mm-hmm.
She's an 18-year-old, and she takes in Barrett and Marlene off the street, because she sees Marlene crying, and so her heart goes out to them, and she brings them in and gives them a place to stay.
Sounds like a bitch so far. Continue.
And yeah, and so around that time she gets associated with Avalanche around that time. Mm-hmm. My memory is a little foggy on this because it's been a little while since I read this.
You pretty much got the same memory of it I have.
Yeah.
I remember she. Yeah, I think you're just about right. Either she had just purchased it, or she decided maybe the ultimate decision to purchase it was because of Marlene and Barrett. But either way, both events happen around the same time. She acquires Seventh Heaven around the same time that she takes Marlene and Barrett in. And so this is another tactic of a certain section of and I want to be clear. I'm personally talking about a small minority of just pure haters who drink Haterade constantly in relation to Tifa. But and I also want to be clear, I am not talking about all Barrifas. I'm not trying to trash this ship at all. I'm just giving you my perspective on it, specific in relation to this topic. The same people who there is a faction that likes to trash Tifa all the time, but then also likes to toss Tifa on the nearest man possible. Okay. And especially when it comes to Barrett, they then like to paint Clotis as being racist for not shipping Tifa and Barrett. Now, I want to once again remind you all, she was 18, he's 33 at the time. Okay. The reason that they, um, end up living together is not because they have this long history and they've conveyed feelings to one another and they've always had a crush on one another like Cloud and Tifa. It's a dire situation. They are living on the streets. She is able to give them a home. She's a kind soul. So she gives them a place to stay. It's there's nothing sexual about it. There's no romantic implications about it. There's never been any hint of a romantic implication about it. I get how OG may have been a little confused because they really just don't talk. I mean, they just kind of skim over a lot of stuff. But even then, there really was never any indication that there was anything going on between Tifa and Barrett. It was more people just saw a man and a woman and they live in a bar, just completely discounting the fact that Avalanche also lived in the same bar. and just let their minds go where they went. But as I said, it's very clear that there is nothing going on in their relationship. If anything, Barrett kind of looks after her, especially after her losing her father so tragically. Just kind of looks after her as sort of a pseudo daughter in and of itself, or at least a big brother type role that he plays for Tifa. It is not racist to not ship them. For me, it just doesn't make any sense to ship them. And what I don't like is people just tossing Tifa at, any penis nearby so they could try to get rid of her to have Cloud to whatever agenda they want. You can go ahead.
Well, you put it very eloquently. Yeah, like I said, if somebody genuinely ships Barrifa, this is not aimed at you at all. I don't really care if other people genuinely ship the ship. I personally don't ship it because I find the age difference to be too much for me personally, and I just don't see it. Again, there's nothing in the game, nothing about their interactions that is even remotely romantic. Barrett always seems like he's taken, like you said, it's very much like he kind of fills the void left behind by her father. Barrett is a very fatherly figure, not just to Marlene, but also to Tifa. And you can see that, especially when you compare the way that he comforts Tifa as opposed to how Cloud comforts Tifa. There is a stark contrast there. After the plate collapses in Remake, Barrett is given the chance to kind of hug Tifa, and you can see a difference in the way that Tifa reacts to Barrett's comfort and the way Tifa reacts to getting comfort from Cloud. When Barrett gives her a hug, he kind of gives her a little bit of the speech of, "Oh, hang on to that anger," and we'll get Shinra back, and we'll get back at Shinra and stuff, and stuff like that, and he kind of gives her like a little bit of a side hug. He hugs her with, and Tifa kind of remains very stiff and still kind of closed off, and she has a very kind of, is that Tifa has a very angry expression on her face, like she's there frowning. There's no tears. She's not allowing herself to open up at all. She just says yeah, and she's very quiet during this scene. She doesn't say a word, and she doesn't really open up to Barrett. And that is another thing about their relationship that I find severely lacking in any romance or whatever, is the fact that a lot of the times Tifa allows Barrett to pretty much take the lead on everything. And in a romantic relationship, if there was any sort of romance there, I don't think Barrett would be being quite so pushy about everything. Mm-hmm. He would probably be asking for a lot more of Tifa's input, but since he's kind of taken on like this father role, he often takes the lead in these situations. And the same thing with like the Avalanche missions and whatever.
Yeah, and that's kind of a group collective. It's not really about Barrett. It's about, greater cause
No,
thing, and that
it's
speaks
all
to
of them.
and that speaks to, it's a complicated thing being part of Avalanche because you are part of a terrorist group. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
And you can't have. It's not that it's personal. You know what I mean? It's just, we can't have people who are wavering. You got to be on
Right.
board with this. And even though it's clear that Bear cares about her feelings, at the same time he has people's lives in his hands, and he can't let her wavering get to him either. The only reason we bring it up is because we are sick of people pretending that Cloudies are or Tifa fans are racist if we don't ship her with Barrett. Uh, you know, it doesn't make you any more woke to just find the nearest black man to throw Tifa at either. Yeah, I'm just gonna keep it
Exactly.
100 with you. Okay,
Uh,
they have no basis. You never hear Barrett's name come out of their mouth, out of the extremist mouth in this fandom, unless it's to try to invalidate Strife family, Cloudy, or something involving Tifa. They don't give a damn about Barrett, okay?
exactly.
At all.
And, and if you ask me, there's nothing more disrespectful to Barrett Wallace than to use him as fodder in a ship war.
Exactly.
And there's nothing more disrespectful than taking a character you absolutely loathe and hate and constantly demean and then saying, "Oh, here, Barrett, have this one."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can have the scraps. I mean, that's what. How is
Uh-huh.
this whole
That's
thing not racist? You know what
yeah,
I'm saying?
right.
This sounds pretty racist to me. We got that
Uh-huh.
black guy over there. Let's just throw the girl we don't like to him. Yeah, yeah. So spare me
Mm-hmm.
with the faux outrage over racism, especially coming from the extremists. They are the last people that need to be talking about racism. Okay. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't know if you want to touch on the other men in Tifa's life, like Item Shop San, Bar San, Johnny.
Oh God, Barsan.
I don't have much to say
Okay.
on that. It's just these cheap tactics to try to find somebody to throw Tifa at. And what's funny about it is Tifa's not the one that started all this. You know, um, Cloud is the one that has been pursuing Tifa. You can. So what are you trying to? I don't even understand the. I mean, there is no logic here, but some guy at the bar told her happy birthday, and therefore she's in love with him. I mean, I don't even understand what the point is. You
The
are
point
you
is,
trying to say? Are you saying like she's into other men, so therefore unworthy of Cloud? Or I just don't understand.
the point is hashtag anyone but Cloud. You, that's what it is. That's what it boils down to.
Yeah, it's
They will
just
literally tear Tifa off with a rock before they would
don't give them
acknowledge.
ideas. Don't give them
Oh,
ideas.
don't.
Oh
It's too
god.
late. It's too late. I'm sure. I'm sure there's some fan art and some anti fan art somewhere of Tifa with a rock at this point.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
it,
but
it
just to
mm-hmm.
give an overall consensus of just how little chance the other men in Tifa's life stand. Just because these boys are flirting with her doesn't mean she's flirting back.
Mm-hmm.
And she's nice, she's polite about it, but she turns them down. I mean, just play through remake and see what she does to poor Johnny.
And Al.
and Okay, so there's a number of men. I'll just briefly touch on each one of them and just show you the stark contrast between how Tifa treats other men who flirt with her and how she reacts when Cloud flirts with her. So one example, of course, we already touched on, Emilio and the other two boys. I forget their names escape me at the moment.
Lester and something else, yeah.
Yeah. We already covered how she would politely change the subject and stuff and get uncomfortable when they flirted with her. When she got older, she started to be a little bit more, I guess you could say, hands-on with her rejections of men, particularly if they were scungy. Like, there's one man in Traces of Two Past, and again, his name escapes me because I have a terrible memory. But he took advantage of her, basically working her hard and taking advantage of her labor when she gets to Midgar in Traces of Two Past. And he has the audacity to tell Tifa that he loves her. You know what her response to him was? She punched him in the
That's
face.
Funny.
She punched him in the face. So that's one down. So far we've got 4 examples of boys flirting with Tifa or men flirting with Tifa and being soundly rejected.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have Johnny.
Well, and before we get to Johnny, I want to say real quick, I believe that, in fact, the item shop kid or whatever, after he went to Midgar, he's the one that wrote her the letter that sort of ultimately led to her deciding to fight because she got tired of them pretending that she was helpless. So that's another response she had to, oh, I'll come save you. So the idea that she was just looking for a hero also is kind of,
She didn't appreciate that very much.
No. But sorry, continue with Johnny.
Okay. So Tifa basically essentially, she's polite. Again, she's not doing this maliciously, but she does kind of allow idiotic men who think they have a chance with her. She does kind of use them to a certain degree to like with Johnny, she uses, I forget exactly how Johnny contributes to Avalanche. It's either through information or ID cards or something like that. But Johnny knows about Avalanche and he helps out with Avalanche from time to time. And that's basically the only reason why Tifa keeps Johnny around. Let's be honest. And she's more than happy to see him leave. Because you see later on in the game, Johnny is ready to leave town and he says, "Oh, but I'd throw it all away for you." And then Tifa's like, "Oh, good luck out there, Johnny. Bye."
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Not a tear in her eye for this dude. No, she's happy to see him, send him on his way. And then, of course, you had Al, who we hear secondhand from Barrett during Barrett's resolution that he tried to pull a flower trick with Tifa and flirt with her, and she basically told him to take his flowers and shove them.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, that made Cloud pretty happy.
That is one of my favorites. because they're not looking at each other the entire time that Barrett is talking, and then Barrett turns around and looks dead at Cloud's like, "Yeah, Al tried to give her a flower once." Cloud gives the look of death. Until Barrett says, "Yeah, she told him where to shove him," and he was like, "Oh, of course she did." he was about to ask. He was about to ask for his address. I mean, Cloud did not appreciate that. Mm-mm. Go ahead.
And let me tell you something. Cloud's response is very telling. He says, "Of course she did," which means that he's been witness to her rejecting people before.
Mm-hmm.
She has a history of this to the extent that Cloud Strife has taken note of it.
Yeah.
He's like, he's not even surprised that she rejected this dude. So that should tell you everything that you need to know. And it's, again, getting off into the weeds a little bit here because I have cloudy brain. Yes. But
me too.
That might also contribute to Cloud's paralyzing fear of telling Tifa how he feels, because I think he's worried that he might be next on the chopping block because he doesn't know that she likes him. So
loves him.
or loves him, yes. loves him,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
I'm sure
That's
that
why it's a sealed up
that
secret wish. Yeah.
it,
His
being
biggest fear is her
rejected.
rejection.
Exactly. Being rejected by her would be his worst nightmare, so he's petrified of telling her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Not that she, and I just want to touch on this. It's not that Tifa is this rude, mean bitch. She's just a very pretty woman who has to survive in a society that happens to have, men who are going to come at her all the time, and she navigates that sort of a purse situation. I'm sure the women listening out here right now, how many times have you gone to a gas station or gone out to a bar or gone somewhere or have friends in your orbit, um, especially if you're any type of public figure who may come on to you or say a lot of flirty things with you, and you just kind of, you just kind of brush it off, or you change the subject. That's exactly what Tifa's doing. This is nothing new. You know what I mean? She's just, it's not, it's just because she doesn't outright reject men a lot doesn't mean that she's into them, doesn't mean that she is playing them or something. It's a lot of times it's just not worth the conflict. So you just find ways around it. And a lot of times they don't mean badly, It's not as they're not really they're not being aggressive with it. You just don't want to hurt people's feelings, so you just find ways to just get around what's going on. And Tifa's that's a lot of what Tifa's doing. And then for the more aggressive men like Al and Johnny, she takes a different approach. And then the whole thing about Avalanche. Avalanche is using Johnny. It's not. And when you're trying to save the world, it sounds mean, but when you're trying to save the world, and you're gonna have people who are gonna give you intel, just because one of the people giving them intel happens to want to date Tifa doesn't mean that they're gonna treat him any differently than anybody else who's giving them intel. It's the person who's giving them intel. So
exactly.
Yeah, but yeah, so.
And to continue on, I guess I'll touch on the last guy, which would be the item shopkeeper in Midgar, the one that Cloud is ready to take his head off. And Tifa basically tells Cloud, if you're nice, you get freebies, and that's basically the extent of that. This guy doesn't stand a snowflake's chance in hell of getting with Tifa, but Tifa's nice to him and he gives her free shit.
Yeah, it's not like she's promising him dates or promising him anything in return. That's deceptive. But if somebody wants to give you something, I don't care. As long as she's not giving him the wrong impression, it doesn't seem like she is.
No, she's just polite to him, that's all.
Yeah.
She's just polite. And she doesn't give him anything.
Mm-hmm.
And but of course it doesn't matter, because the very fact that this guy is even attempting to make a move on Tifa was enough for Cloud to want to take his head off.
Well, and you know what? And Cloud saw it for what it was as well. Like, I think there's a bit of, either Tifa's ignoring it, like we said, because she's just trying to survive, and or she isn't quite getting, or maybe Cloud thinks she isn't quite getting what's really happening here. It's not that he's just running around giving people free stuff. He's giving her free stuff because he likes her. And Cloud recognizes that immediately, and that's why he gets pissed off. You see what I'm saying? Like, Cloud is that guy who is, there's, in some weird way, what am I trying to say? As another man who is into Tifa, he recognizes it immediately, whereas she may not be totally aware of, in his mind, she may not be totally aware of why he's so nice to her all the time. And I think that's where his mind is, because she says, oh yeah, if you're nice, he might throw in a freebie or two, and he says, for you maybe. That's what that means in my head. Like, okay, like, yeah, he's being nice to you. He's not gonna give me anything. Yeah. But anyway, yeah. So So I think
So,
we've thoroughly explained why Tifa isn't sleeping around with Nibelheim. She isn't sleeping around with Midgar. Almost certainly has never kissed anybody. She definitely isn't shown canonically to have dated anybody. Cloud is the first person she's been with. Period. So we can just scratch that whole Tifa's a slut thing right off the list.
I
And
think we can say that has been thoroughly debunked.
now you wanted to touch on the way to a smile. I'm not totally familiar with this topic. I only just heard about this today, this whole Tifa depression thing. Can you just fill me in on what this is about, and I can respond in kind.
Well, at the beginning of On the Way to a Smile, it kind of it starts off with Tifa in the bar, and it kind of does a little bit of a few time jumps in here. But essentially, after Cloud leaves, she's there in the bar by herself, and she's kind of alone with her thoughts and everything, and she struggles with these bouts of depression and guilt, and blaming herself specifically for the Sector 7 plate collapse. Like, that is one of the main things that's weighing down on her in her chapter in the beginning, is her just feeling like she's to blame for a lot of death and destruction. And so she has that weighing on her. And then, of course, all the losses that she's incurred, during her travels. A lot of the time, Tifa's losses are kind of overlooked by the fandom at large, because we're hyper focused on Cloud because he's our main character, because that's what the story focuses on.
Yeah.
But Tifa has gone through just as much, and in some cases more than Cloud, at least in the realm of losing people. Cloud has lost his mother, he's lost Zack, and he lost Aerith. But Tifa also lost Aerith, and she lost her father, and she lost a whole bunch of her friends in the Sector 7 plate collapse. Cloud hadn't really gotten the chance to get close to many people in Sector 7 before the plate collapsed, but Tifa lived there for 5 years. Mm-hmm. That was her home. So imagine that in Remake, you could see that some of the people survived, but in OG, and of course, On the Way to a Smile is, whatever you think about, Remake and alternate timelines or whatever the hell. Regardless of that, in On the Way to a Smile, she lost Jesse, Biggs, and Wedge, and a whole bunch of other people that she knew in Sector 7. And so not only it would have been heartbreaking enough for her to lose all those people, but she also blames herself for their deaths.
Mm-hmm.
And to make matters worse, the little boy that she's essentially trying to redeem herself by taking care of this boy, because his parents were killed during the plate collapse. So she thinks that taking care of Denzel, much like Cloud, she thinks that taking care of Denzel will be a way to redeem herself.
Yeah.
And this little boy is dying of geostigma, and there's nothing she can do to help him. And so it's just making everything worse. Mm-hmm. And so she has all these doubts and everything, and she feels very alone at that time. And so people, wonder, why was she being so harsh with Cloud and blah, blah, blah. And first of all, she was not being that harsh with him.
Not really.
and all that stuff. I mean,
she was playing patty cakes with that man, if you ask me. Trust me, I'd have had a whole lot more to say.
Yeah, and the developers, I believe it was Nojima, when they talked about that scene, after she confronts Cloud, it said that she, in the Japanese, she says, "There, I said it." She kind of gives out this, like, she's not happy confronting him like that. Mm-hmm. She just feels like it's necessary, because she's been holding it in that whole time, she's had all this frustration and feeling alone and feeling upset too, just like him. But unlike Cloud and unlike Barrett, Tifa wasn't able to just drop everything and run away from her problems. She had to stay there, continue to run the bar, take care of children, and she had to do it by herself because both Barrett and Cloud essentially ditched her. And I'm not villainizing Barrett or Cloud because they both had their own ways of dealing with their grief and their guilt. So I'm not trying to villainize them.
Yeah, but it's just the truth. Reverse the roles. Tifa has these 2 kids. She's built this family with Cloud, and then one day she just, with no explanation, she just ups and leaves. Imagine what this same fandom would be saying about her. Okay?
She'd be the worst person ever.
She already is. You know what I'm saying? So she then abandons her family. Now, it ultimately was we understand what the reason was. It was, like you said, it wasn't malicious, but still, if you're in a partnership, you're in a relationship, you're in a partnership, you got kids, you got responsibilities, you can't just up and leave. With no explanation, you just go off to die. I mean, not that he was trying to die, but you go off to find a cure. But had the events of having children not happened, he would have just died, and she would have never known what the hell was going. That's not the way to handle it. He's just emotionally immature.
Exactly. And that's the thing that people need to understand is that is the conflict of Advent children. It's shown as something that Cloud needs to overcome. It's shown that Cloud made a mistake by running away, and that things start to get better for him when he listens to Tifa and
as usual.
Stops dilly-dallying, and here's the other thing too, is that people go like, oh, well, Aerith was much more gentle with Cloud, and blah, 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 blah.
Oh my god.
Let me correct the record here by saying that read through On the Way to a Smile, and you will know that Aerith cannot communicate with Cloud in this state. It is only after Tifa talks to Cloud and gets him to finally let go of the grief, at least for a moment, and put his family first and focus on saving these children, that Aerith is actually finally able to break through and talk to him.
Mm-hmm.
Because
that is the first time that she shows up, isn't it? When he goes to Forgotten City?
It is.
That's after that conversation.
And if you look at On the Way to a Smile, Aerith is trying to communicate with Cloud, and she can't. Because he's closed off. It's only after that conversation with Tifa, and he goes to the Forgotten City, that Aerith is finally able to break through. So Aerith wouldn't even been able to talk to Cloud at all if it wasn't for Tifa. So everyone say thank you, Tifa.
and I also want to, it's hard to separate Tifa and Cloudy hate. So I realize we've been going back and forth on this a little bit, because then once it's obvious that these two are in a relationship and Tifa isn't this monster that people want to portray her as, then we have this other side of it. Oh, I saw somebody, I was finally able to, let go of Tifa being with Cloud, because, they want to paint it as a toxic relationship and all this. Look, people have first off, the conflicts that Tifa and Cloud have are not with each other. That is very important to understand. Cloud is dealing with an internal struggle. It has nothing to do with Tifa. Okay. And then Tifa's, it's because he pulls away. Yeah, then it sort of becomes an issue between them, but the issues are starting internal. It's not like Cloud has a problem with Tifa. He's purposely treating Tifa in one way or the other. He's doing what he has done from adolescence, which is run away from his problems. That's what Cloud has done historically. When the mountain incident happened, he pulled away, when he didn't become when he wanted to impress Tifa, he didn't just go up and ask her on a date and, try to woo her that way. He ran off to Midgar. Yeah. And decided to go join a war. When he couldn't become a soldier, he, instead of just admitting it, I guarantee if he had just walked up to Tifa when he went to Nibelheim, and said whatever, they probably, it would have been fine. She wouldn't have cared, but instead he hid himself. Like, this is a pattern with Cloud, and she loves him, which, she loves him, and it doesn't make the relationship toxic or him a bad person, but now, he lost over 4 years, let's just say 5, of important growth that Tifa got. So she's just emotionally more mature, and they even say this a lot in like reunion files and stuff, is that she is a type of maternal presence in Cloud's life, though they say Aerith and Tifa are, though Tifa's is a romantic context and Aerith's is not. That's the differentiation that they make. I don't know if I said that word correctly, but my whole point being that a lot of Tifa's role, she guides Cloud to the right conclusions a lot without being pushy about it, which is important because I just, like, Cloud does not have the personality where he needs to have somebody in his face, doing all that type of stuff. But what's good about Having Children is she finally just kind of lets go a bit, because it tells Cloud that this really is serious. Like, I really messed up right now. And that's why his behavior, his behavior does a 180, and he goes home to his family, and they're perfectly fine after that. They just had things they really needed to say to each other, and Cloud needed to kind of grow up, honestly, but it doesn't make the relationship toxic. They're 21 and 20, or what is it, 22 and 23, like, give them a break, and everything that they've gone through. Anyway. All right, I'm sorry. I went on a bit of a 5-minute tangent, but yeah, I just wanted to say, because we were talking about how Cloud, ran off and stuff like that. I just want to be clear that we're not calling this a toxic relationship. We're just keeping it real with you that, yeah, that was the wrong thing to do, and Tifa had to let him know. That's what that whole scene was about.
It is presented as the conflict of the story. It's shown as something, narratively, it's shown as something that Cloud needs to overcome. And when he does overcome it, then everything starts going in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So, and Cloud himself admits that, that he was screwing up. And he thanks Tifa for it later. Mm-hmm. He's already being shown to be on the mend, even before defeating Sephiroth. Like, when he's getting ready to fight Bahamut Sin, and he's already telling Tifa, hey, I feel like I've lost weight, and he's already promising Denzel he's gonna come home, and then he has that conversation with Marlene, and he says, you and Denzel and Tifa, you've always been there for me. Now it's my turn, and everything is starting to go in the right direction, and all because he finally listened to Tifa. Just remember, men, the wife is always right. Okay, you just remember that.
And by the way, famously, at least famous for Cloudies, they said that when he says the "sorry I was late" or whatever, when Tifa is on the bike, and she says, "It's fine." That line he says in Japanese, Hayashi said, is a phrase that a husband says to a wife. Not that they're literally married, but that's, between Nojima's words and that line and some other things, that's essentially, they're living like a domesticated, what is it called when you live with somebody so long that you become married in the eyes of the state. But you see what I'm saying? Like, that, it's like a marriage without the ring. I mean, a marriage without the paperwork. You know what I mean? That's the life that they've been living. Mm-hmm.
They are married in every sense of the word, short of an official ceremony.
Yes.
I mean, they even got damn rings at this point. I mean, good grief.
So yeah, I see everything that you mean totally. It runs in the same line of thinking as, oh, Tifa's a liar because she didn't just jump out there and say what she knew about Nibelheim. Well, you've been surviving on your own for 7 years. You walking by a train station and you see the love of your life sitting there. He's looking like a crackhead. You don't know what the hell's going on. He recognizes her before she recognizes him, if I'm not mistaken. He's mothering Tifa, and then she looks over and she's like, oh my God, this Cloud. So he goes from, all on the floor, all on the ground, acting a mess. Then he's, she calls his name and he jumps up to his feet, and then he's saying all this crazy stuff. And she's like, what the hell is going on? She's no mind reader. She's no, she's no therapist. She just knows that she just had this fateful reunion with the person that she loves. And he is acting really strange. And then he starts telling stories that he can't possibly know, but at the same time, the amount of detail he knows, he can't be lying either. Like it's again another impossible situation. And because she doesn't act perfectly, because it's real easy to Monday quarters. This is what a lot of them do. A lot of the extremists, what is it called, Monday quarterback or whatever. Tifa, we all have the context. We all know what's going on with the Genova and stuff. She has no idea that he's been injected with Genova cells and all this, and Genova is suppressing his real self, and he became a soldier. He wants to become a soldier for her, and therefore he constructed between Genova and himself constructed this. So she has no idea about any of this. She just knows the boy that she loves is in trouble, and she wants to keep an eye on him. So yeah, I say all that to say, same thing with having children. Tifa is put in these really bad circumstances. And then if she just acts like a human being, she's the devil. And, we all know what this is really about. Nobody, it's not like other characters didn't see what was going on with Cloud, or, it really we know it really has nothing to do with Tifa or what she's done. It's just pure salt because people don't like Cloudy. But it is frustrating that she just doesn't have the room to be a human. And meanwhile, they infantilize Cloud to an insane level. He's a soldier who can do anything, except he can't say no to this one woman. This big, bad, scary Tifa Lockhart. Come on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if they're, let me just add this, because this is my absolute favorite, is that whenever anybody talks about, how toxic the relationship between Cloud and Tifa is, and it's like, wow, it was so toxic that Cloud went back to it with a big smile on his face.
Yeah.
He's real miserable living with Tifa. He was more than happy to go back home to her.
Yeah,
and all was said.
The kids all right showed that, and he said they're a family, maybe not by blood, but just like any other family. Reminiscence, where he takes a day off work and tells Tifa to shut down the bar so he can spend time with her and the kids. I'm sure that sounds platonic as hell. Dirge of Cerberus, he's got a smile on his face half the whole thing. He's still with Tifa then too, still living with her. Not only, as shown in the game, but in the 10th anniversary. I think it's the 10th anniversary. Or no, I'm sorry. It's the Crisis Core Ultimania says that, they conveyed feelings to one another, and they are still living together in AC and DC. Now, my guess is DC means Dirge of Cerberus. Let's say think that meant DC Comics or something. I mean, I don't know what they think that means. Yeah, and since we're nearing the end of this, because we've covered all our topics, there are a few things that they can never explain. And this is cloudy, but it's about Tifa too. One, let's say, okay, there are a few things they can never explain. One is, why, when he's just fallen into the live stream again, his mind is completely gone. This is during Medill. And he pulls her into his subconscious. First off, he heard her. That's kind of odd, for this platonic friend. Two, his brain is filled with nothing but Tifa. And that's a little interesting if he isn't romantically attracted to her. No other woman is in his brain. Okay, just her. They never explain that. They could never explain why the night before he is likely to die, he spends the whole night with Tifa Lockhart. This horrible bully bitch that has ruined his life, lied to him, only wanted him for being a soldier, all these other lies that they come up with, sleeping with everybody from Midgard and Nibelheim. He decides to spend that night confessing feelings with her and doing whatever all night, whatever they think they were doing all night. I'm going to say having sex because that's what people who are rational would say. And then they also can't explain why in the world, out of any place in the world he could be, if I'm not attracted to somebody or I don't intend on having a relationship with somebody, I go my separate way. What is keeping Cloud with Tifa? Especially if you're of the mindset that he actually is in love with another woman. Why would you then go move in with a woman is in love with you and start raising kids and building businesses with her? It makes zero sense on any level that he would do this. This may not even be part of the same stream. I just want to get this out here on camera. I'm gonna need somebody I'm gonna need somebody to explain this to me. Barrett and all them go off across the world. Cloud is perfectly capable of making money on his own, finding his own place to live, but he just decides to be in this little rundown city that's up and coming, right near, what is the reason? Give me a rational explanation. Go ahead.
The rational explanation is that he is looking. He's got a place to crash, so he can go get on his little motorcycle and look for the promised land.
The one that he had Tifa pay for.
Yeah, he had the rival of his one true love pay for his bike and have her raise his spirit child with his dead lover, so he can go ride around in a motorcycle to look for this nebulous promised land. That's actually the after. It's actually the afterlife, but Cloud is looking for it apparently.
And it's funny. It's funny that the dev said that there was an interview, where they said Cloud ends up in the place where he belongs, which is with his family. It's funny enough where he ends up at the end of the movie is with Tifa and the kid. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
I mean, it just and that's really what this boils down to, folks. I mean, I know people watching this going, oh, why are you guys talking about this? You guys were supposed to be debunking Tifa takes. Well, essentially that is what this all boils down to. It's the fact that there is a motive behind all of these trash takes for Tifa. People aren't just doing this for their health. They're doing this with a very specific agenda in mind. Very. And that is what and so, we can sit here and debunk all the baloney from dawn till dusk, and they'll come up with new stuff too, and they'll recycle the same old trash takes as they have been. I mean, you saw that just at the time of this recording, there's a whole bunch of crap just last week, recycled stuff from last year, the year before last. It is the same garbage year in and year out, week to week. And the reason why is because there is a very strong motive behind it. And the motive is, we don't like Cloud and Tifa together. Blah, blah, blah. We're going to sit there. So we're going to sit there. We're going to trash their relationship. We're going to trash the people who ship that relationship. We're going to trash Tifa, make her the lowest of the low, so that way people don't feel comfortable shipping them.
And they trash Cloud as well. And don't even see that they're doing it. I mean, if you if you say that Cloud would actually like, so let's give them, you know, the worst take possible of Avid Children Tifa or post OG Tifa, this desperate tramp who just can't let go of Cloud, and so she forces him to live with her or whatever. Okay, Cloud would, first off, one, again, is he a grown ass man or he isn't? Can he say no to people or he can't? So this he's just so scared of Tifa that he has to do all this, or he just, it doesn't even make any sense why he would stay with her. But two, you think that Cloud would attach his whole life to a woman, knowing he'll never return her affections, even have her given a lifetime voucher out so that he can buy a bike to go find the promised land to be with another woman? I mean, some of the worst takes they have are about Cloud, if you ask me. I mean, this stuff they say about Tifa's ridiculous, but the stuff they say about Cloud is insidious as hell. That he would be in love with another woman, but a week later he's sleeping with another one. One famously told me that, well, it was a comfort bang. Oh yeah, taking a woman confessing her love to you and then taking her virginity is just a comfort bang. Okay, well, and y'all are Cloud fans? I mean, y'all are Final Fantasy VII fans, and you think this, you know?
Well, and that is the most insidious thing of all, like you said. Is that a lot of these people who push these talking points claim to be Cloud fans. I call bullshit on that. I'm sorry.
Major
I know people
bullshit.
say, oh, you shouldn't gatekeep. I'm sorry. I'm gonna gatekeep Cloud Strife for people like that. I don't care. You can dislike me all you want, but you know that I'm telling you the truth. And there's certain people in this fandom, and I think they know who they are, who claim to be Cloud Strife's biggest fangirls, and let me tell you, they don't know the first thing about that man.
The latest thing from the DDC has been that there is no real or soldier Cloud. Now, how the hell do you play Final Fantasy VII? Which, you know, take a moment to laugh. How the hell do you play Final Fantasy VII and not know that there is a real Cloud and a soldier Cloud? Forget the Ultimanias and the 100 quotes stating it. You play that game, he says out of his own mouth that he created an illusion of himself, and he's gonna, from now on, I'm gonna be myself. That's what the whole live stream. I mean, actually, the whole live stream scene is about his affection for Tifa, but but a part of the live stream scene is, I was living under a false persona. How do you just miss the whole climax of the game, the whole turning point of the game when Sephiroth convinces him he's not a real person and he realizes that he was never a soul. I mean, how do you just miss all that? And then claim to be a Cloud fan, let alone a fucking Final Fantasy VII fan. I don't understand it.
And that's my favorite thing too, because I never get Aerith's gold saucer date because I always get Tifa's, but I know better clearly what Aerith is talking about during her gold saucer date than apparently some of these people who constantly get her gold saucer date. I want to meet the real you. Why on God's green earth would Aerith say, I want to meet the real you, if she has already met the real Cloud? Clearly, there's a false persona going on there, and Aerith doesn't know the real Cloud, otherwise she wouldn't be saying, I want to meet him.
And unlike some of these Tifa detractors, she's not an idiot. She can tell something is very wrong with him. Okay, she may not know the specifics, and she doesn't know it to the degree that Tifa does because she knows the real him, but she knows something's up. He's carrying Zack's sword around and wearing his clothes, but he don't even remember Zack. Like, has no recollection of him whatsoever. Yeah, something's up.
Mm-hmm.
Because unlike in Remake, I mean, it's still same thing because he doesn't remember Zack because Jenova, we can see Jenova suppressing the memories clearer in that context. But yeah, anyway. Yeah. And so to Monk's point, 90% of this has absolutely nothing to do with Tifa. Okay? All this are cheap, disgusting, misogynistic, often racist, because there are plenty of racist shit that goes around about Tifa as well. You know, it's funny that they call us racist for not shipping Barrifa. Meanwhile, Cloud and Tifa are actually an interracial couple. But we'll overlook that irony. All of this is just a ploy to either, it is a ploy to convince people that Tifa doesn't belong with Cloud, isn't worthy of Cloud, is bad for Cloud, is toxic for Cloud. That's all this is about. And it doesn't matter how terrible they have to paint Cloud, Aerith, or anybody else to make this a reality. All right, well, this has been another, this has been fun. Even if it is 2 a.m., this has been very fun. So, glad to finally get this out. We have been planning this forever, but glad to finally get this out. I'm sure some takes that we hadn't thought of in the moment will come up, and if we got to do a part 2 on this, I'm fine with that. Anyway, that's all I got to say. Been fun talking to you, Monk, and I guess we'll end it there. We'll see y'all later.
Yeah. Hey, thank you.
Thanks. This is Stygian Stilettos Gamer, and I am # out of here, honey.